Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. My 28th husband, 32M, invited a stripper to have a threesome without discussing it with me. On our wedding night. Where do I go from here? Let me preface this by saying nothing like this has ever happened before, which is what left me so utterly flabbergasted, as I had a lot of trust in our relationship. My husband, we'll call him Steve, and I planned to get married in Vegas with an entourage last year, but due to COVID we got married in the courthouse last year and did our wedding in Vegas this year for our 1-year anniversary. We like to have fun, so our Vegas plans did include hitting a strip club. The day before our wedding, we were all supposed to go to the club together, but I drank too much and was confined to bed, so my husband and some friends hit the strip club and I stayed at the hotel. Cool, no big deal. He didn't come home until 7 a.m. Still cool, not ideal to get married on no sleep, but if it doesn't bother him, it doesn't bother me. He gets home and starts talking about 2 strippers he met, one who wants to come to our wedding, we'll call her Stella. She told him she didn't want to be weird and she had a boyfriend, but our wedding sounded cool and she wanted to come. Again, cool. We had the rumors it wasn't a formal wedding, and what's a Vegas wedding without a stripper from the night before? Then he tells me about the other stripper, who he thinks wanted to have a threesome with us because she said his wife sounded hot and he invited her to the wedding also. I didn't really say much to that. He's mentioned wanting to have a threesome before and it has never been off the table, but we have only really discussed briefly and vaguely, like hey, we might do that someday. He also got both of their numbers to send them the wedding info, but that is where things start to go downhill. For a majority of the time leading up to the wedding, we didn't spend our time separately before the wedding since we are already married. He is talking about how he really thinks they're going to show up and he can't believe strippers are coming to our wedding. Like he talked about almost nothing else. Not the greatest vibe for a bride on her wedding day who is expecting to be her husband's main focus, but it didn't bother me much at the time because I assumed he was just excited and maybe a little high on Vegas. Wedding time rolls around and Stella actually shows. She's gorgeous and sweet, and we decided we might visit her at the club later that night since I missed out the night before and was a little bummed. We part ways and head out to take our wedding portraits. And my husband is still talking about Stella, but now it's about what club she will be at and when later that evening. At one point he even referred to her as his Vegas girlfriend to our friends, which made me uneasy, but I laughed it off as a joke and again figured he was high on Vegas. We head to dinner and husband is sucked into his phone, barely speaking to me and still managing to rush me to meet up with our friends to go see Stella. We meet up with our friends, bar hop for a bit, then head to Stella's club with the expectation that we'll stay for an hour because it is late and everyone is pretty beat. We get there, and after about 10 minutes Stella comes over to hang out. Steve wants to get a couple's lap dance. I tell him I don't want to, but to go without me, I would prefer to sit back and tip the girls dancing on the pole, as I am very sober, couldn't drink after partying too hard the day before, and at this point feeling a little awkward as my husband seems very into Stella. After several minutes of being talked into it by Stella and Steve, I uncomfortably agree and we head back. The dance starts and I'm that person that doesn't know what to do with my hands and I'm waiting for it to end. Stella tries her best to make me feel at ease, joking and complimenting me, but it just makes me feel more awkward. Well, that and Steve asking me more than once why I'm being awkward. After several minutes I leave before the dance is over but tell them to finish and they do. Several minutes later, they come back to the group. Stella perches on my chair and tells me that Steve told her we wanted to have a threesome, then she apologetically told me doesn't do that with customers. I'm mortified for several reasons. 1. Because he crossed that professional line and it was disrespectful, especially because he knows she has a boyfriend. 2. He made it sound like I was in on it. 3. Arguably the most important, this man asked someone to have a threesome without discussing it with me at all. On our wedding night. At this point we've been here about an hour, and our friend group decided to leave. All of us. Except my husband. He opted to stay at the strip club alone, with the girl who just shot him down for a threesome, while all of his friends and his wife went back to the hotel. To be fair, he did ask me if it was okay and I said it was, because at this point I don't have it in me to explain to this man all the ways he has disrespected me. He gets home an hour or two later and asks me if I'm mad and I unleash on him, but I don't get far before he cuts me off by continuously saying I'm sorry, I'm an asshole until I stop even trying to talk about it. We go to bed and in the morning he tells me he apologized to Stella and deleted her contact info. We leave for our 5-day honeymoon and don't discuss it again, except for once when he informs me that Stella appreciated the apology but said it wasn't necessary and that she wants us to come see her next time we're in Vegas. Great. I spent our honeymoon either stoned, not a healthy crutch, I know, but it was the only thing that made it bearable, which allowed me to occasionally forget the incident, or silently fuming, wondering if I was overreacting, afraid to go off if this wasn't actually as big of a deal as I thought it was, because he obviously didn't think it was. He asked me multiple times if I was okay, every time I gave a half-hearted fine. We returned home and I told my best friend the story, because I needed to talk to someone about it, and I needed her to tell me if all of the concerns were in my head and I was overreacting. She confirmed that my concerns were valid, I was not overreacting. That night I confronted my husband and actually got to speak. When I finished he apologized. He said he thought a threesome was what I wanted because I was excited when he brought it up earlier that day. No, I wasn't. He said he knew he ducked up but didn't bring it up sooner because he thought I wanted to wait until after vacation to discuss it. Right, why wouldn't I want this to hang over our vacation like a rain cloud instead of working through it? What should I do? I thought this man was my future. We have dogs together and we're discussing kids. I don't want to give up on it so easily, but I don't know if I can get past this. It's not just what he did in Vegas, it's how he behaved afterwards. Girl, what the duck? Exactly, what the duck? Let me preface this by saying nothing like this has ever happened before. You ducking well got that right. Proceeds to tell us a dozen things that have happened exactly like it. This story cannot be real. She told her best friend about it after returning home. Wouldn't her best friend be at her wedding? Even if something kept a BFF from her BFF's wedding, wouldn't there be texts or calls, like, girl, you would not believe what's happening, run. Fake. Yeah, what the duck? I said WTF at every other line I read. It's too elaborate and detailed that it seems real. Honestly, there are so many red flags on all sides of this situation I can't even see clearly. The only person who acted like an adult was Stella. Steve is an ass for obvious reasons. And if you're not fine, say you're not fine. For the love of God. Is trying so hard to be the cool girl, but it's clearly not working for her. This was exactly what I thought. You don't need to hide your feelings and worry about his disappointment that he can't duck another woman on your wedding night. Heard a line today about being the cool girl just means you have no boundaries, and here it is absolutely spot on. This is exactly the kind of behavior Gillian Flynn was talking about in Gone Girl. Girls need to speak up firmly and early on in relationships about what's okay and what's not okay. Something tells me has not set strong enough boundaries and Steve can't make out when she is not comfortable. This does not bode well for a good marriage at all. Every other sentence includes him tromping on boundaries and her just shrugging. It's clear they don't even know what boundaries are. She's trying so hard to be the cool girl that she has literally lost all sense of self. If it's not fake, it's a truly terrible relationship of two emotionally immature people who should break up and seriously get counseling before they even try dating again. These are not people equipped to have adult relationships. Exactly this. I'm very concerned for the dogs. Update: my 28F husband, 32M, invited a stripper to have a threesome without discussing it with me. On our wedding night. Where do I go from here? Update: as harsh as some of you were not wrong. I should have stood up for myself long before we got to the point of him soliciting a threesome. Here's a few things about me that may make it more understandable. 1. I have long been aware that I have boundary issues in all areas of my life, and that it is something I need to work on. Trust me, this was definitely the push I needed to get the ball rolling and actually seek help. 2. I am also awful at confrontation, and again, I am well aware that I need to work on it. 3. I have experienced trauma in my life, and had been experiencing some serious mental health and self-esteem issues even before this happened. 4. When I get upset, I shut down completely. Again, I am aware this is not a healthy response and will be working on it, but that is where I am currently. 5. Despite my trauma, I am a naturally trusting person. I am going to trust you completely until you give me a reason not to, and as hard as it may be to believe, my husband had not given me a reason not to trust him before this point. 6. I don't believe in explaining to people who claim to love me how to treat me well and not disrespect me. If you know and love me, you should know how to act like it. Obviously for minor issues, they may not know, but I'm sorry, this one seems like a no-brainer. 7. Consent 101 is anything other than an enthusiastic yes. It can be non-verbal but should be an obvious yes. Actually consent is asking someone to do something after they say no and until they say yes. Actually consent. Thank you to everyone that took the time to read this post and reply with love, tough love, and even disdain. You've given me a lot to think about and process in therapy. Yes, I have entered therapy. I have also insisted my husband enter therapy if he wants any chance for this marriage to work. At some point after working on ourselves, if it makes sense, we will come together to work on our relationship to see if it is salvageable. This is why I have asked Reddit, instead of people in our lives, for advice. I have told only my best friend the dirty details of what happened and plan to keep it that way because I know that once people hear something like this it changes how you look at a relationship, and if we are going to make it work, this incident is better off not shouted from the rooftops. I have not ended our marriage yet, for a few reasons. 1. This was not entirely my husband's fault. He can take a majority of the blame, but not all. 2. If I do not at least try, I will always wonder what if. 3. Something caused him to act this way. Maybe if it was his attraction to another woman, maybe it was a concern he had about me, himself, or our relationship, that manifested in an ugly way. I would like to know where this came from, and if it is likely to happen again before making any permanent decisions. 4. Something in me thought that all of the disrespect leading up to the pitch of the threesome was acceptable, and I need to investigate why that is to have any hope of having a successful relationship moving forward. For the record though, threesomes and children are off the table until further notice. Threesomes will not be discussed again until I decide it is time. Children will not be discussed until it is deemed we are at a healthy place by a professional, if ever. Original post. We repeat girl, what the duck? Exactly. This story's got some TLC, Gypsy Bride vibes. Sometimes people put themselves in those situations and stay there, despite everyone's warnings. It's hard to not blame them. It sounds terrible, but we can't take away accountability when they're given the choice. Threesomes are off the table now. I guess sticking to the bed will make that easier. Why are you blaming yourself? Your husband is a creep. Yeah, this whole post reads like she's trying to make it something she messed up. I was fully hoping to see she had dumped him. I hate this because I've been at a point in my life where I would have blamed myself 100%. And I know now I don't deserve that, but I wouldn't have been able to convince myself then. Self-awareness takes a lot of honesty and absolute clarity. Therapists often help us become aware of self-destructive behaviors. Of course, there will always be toxic people who will take advantage of you. They will violate your countries, and keep pushing you until you have a breakdown. Damn, I hope she has a good therapist who gives her some real talk. she need to draw a red line under this relationship? Exactly. She is giving an entire list of how she has boundary issues, how she shuts down when she is upset, etc., etc., making it seem as if it's partly her fault too, which is absolutely not the case. The husband is 110% at fault, and this will not be the last time something like this happens again. Abuse victims often will use mental gymnastics to put blame onto themselves one way or another, even if they aren't at fault whatsoever. The biggest issue I can see on her end is that the boundaries seemed super vague. A threesome isn't off the table, but we are going to think about that in the future, and he clearly took Vegas as his opportunity. He was being gross, but, aside from the coerced lap dance, which was just painful to read, there are a lot of occasions where she would have spoken up if she was uncomfortable. The unrealistic part of this story, though, is the stripper being so into it that she came to their wedding. Yeah, that she sounds pretty fetch. She definitely should have put her foot down when her boundaries were clearly being violated, but come on man. What pos would think it's okay to do all that to his wife? At the wedding/honeymoon? Nah homie. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.